Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Live at 5. This is a stream that I do every day on this channel, Sunday through Thursday. And usually when I do Live at 5, I talk about different news and events and things that are on my mind. And sometimes we even get mystical. We talk about tarot cards and feelings and things that make people squishy and all that. But today I have a very special guest on my channel, and we're going to have actually, I'm going to be interviewed today. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to introduce my special guest in a minute. But before we get to that, guys, I just want to remind you that my upcoming book, Actively Unwoke, is on sale. Pre-order right now. You can find it at activelyunwoke.com. You can check out the link that I have pinned to the top of the chat. If you're on Odyssey and Rockfin, it is in the description below. And I wanted to give you guys an update because I've been emailing a little bit with my publisher today. And what I have discovered is that, a couple things. Number one, I know a lot of you have been asking, when is the Kindle going to be available for pre-order? Because right now, only the hardcover is available for pre-order. It's coming soon. I think they said like the first week in February, the Kindle version was going to be up to pre-order. So if you've been waiting for that Kindle version, it's coming. And many of you have been asking about getting an autographed copy of the hardcover. We're working out a solution. We're working it out. We're going to come up with a solution to that. So that is coming as well. Now, if you haven't been on activelyunwoke.com yet, I do just want to bring your attention to a couple live events that I've got coming up. I am going to be doing a free webinar on February 1st, a bare bones introduction to all things critical race theory. Of course, we have the amazing mom from Rhode Island, Nicole Solis, coming up on February 11th. She's going to teach us all how to do effective public records requests so we can find out what the schools are teaching your kids when they're trying to hide it. And then on February 17th, just scheduled the other day, I've got Paul Rossi coming in to do a webinar. He's going to show you what your tax dollars are being spent on in regards to diversity training for teachers in the public schools. It's shocking. It's so shocking that Twitter has already started banning the videos that Paul was posting, but Twitter cannot stop us from having our own webinars. So all of these events are free. You can sign up for them. They're going to be in a free private webinar system. It's not Zoom. And that way you can ask questions. You're not going to get canceled for signing up. Please share all this information out with your friends and family, especially the ones who are just learning about this stuff. It's really important that we bring new people in. We teach them all the things that we already know. And then the last thing I want to just shill before we get started is my book club that's going to be coming up on February 20th. We are reading The R of the Mind. It is a book about how totalitarian regimes imprint their points of view on people's brains. And I think it's highly relevant to what's going on today. This is based on research that was done in the 1930s, but I think it's really relevant to what's going on in the world. I've just started reading it. It is a terrifying book, but I'm so glad that Aaron Kinesvatter, who is a psychologist and an unwoke whistleblower from the University of Vermont, is going to come and join us and talk about it. And we're all going to have a great discussion. Now, that is something that is exclusively available to my supporters in Locals. So if you haven't become a supporter in Locals yet, now is a really great time. We have got a community Zoom call coming up tomorrow at noon for supporters only. I just spent 4 hours last night on Zoom with my supporters. We do 2 of these community calls a week. We've got book club coming up. We're going to have Craft and Bitch coming up the second Saturday of February. We've got a lot of great activities that you can sign up for, but you got to put some skin in the game. So how you do that is you go to kb.locals.com/support. It comes at $5 a month. You can also do it at $50 a year if you want to get for 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. And all of this support allows me to do this stuff and stream every day at 5 o'clock and have great conversations with people like Dennis that we're going to have today. I can't do it without my local supporters. I love you guys. I appreciate you so, so, so much. And if you want to join our amazing community, I say this all the time, I don't have the biggest community on Locals, but I do think I have the best community on Locals. We genuinely support each other. We help each other out. We help each other through the good times and the bad. It is the best place on the internet, the only place where you can actually keep your sanity. And so I'll look forward to welcoming you guys into Locals if you decide to join today. You can also join for free at kb.locals.com if you just want to check it out. Maybe you decide to sign up as a supporter after. All right, today on the channel, I am my friend and Porcfest organizer extraordinaire, Dennis Pratt. Now, last year was my first year at Porcfest. I didn't know what to expect. I loved every second of it. And Dennis is going to come today to talk to me about what my experience at Porcfest was as a total noob, and hopefully maybe some sneak peeks, Dennis, about what we can expect this year at Porcfest. So welcome to the channel. I'm so glad you're back.
Thank you, Karlyn. Yes, the last year you were good enough to interview me to help people who were newbies. A lot of it came from your concerns where you were going, I don't understand this Porcfest thing. It's not something that I'm used to. I'm nervous, and I'm probably not alone. So it was great to actually have that. I've already used it a couple of times for newbies. And I thought that it might be nice to have a follow-up just to find out what your experiences actually were, and given what your nervousness was and where you were, how it has informed you.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Now, guys, I just want to know before we get started on this, if you would like to register for Porcfest, and I know tickets are dwindling down, and I'm sure Dennis is going to talk about that, you can do that at porcfest.com. I will put the link in the chat. It is not a festival about bacon. I'm sorry to disappoint, but it's porcfest.com, and that's where you can get your tickets. All right, Dennis, let's just jump. I have nothing prepared, so you are the leader and the interviewer of this conversation. Where are we starting?
Well, let me ask you first, why is it called Porcfest, Karlyn?
Because it's a porcupine. You guys I missed the porcupine bonfire last year because I had to leave a day early, but it's because of the symbol for liberty in New Hampshire and libertarians is a porcupine, not a stupid elephant or donkey. Savage porcupine.
Well, that's great. And do you think it's an appropriate symbol for us?
I love it. I do. I love it. I know that. So there's this hockey match that's coming up between the Republicans and the Libertarians in New Hampshire. And like the mascot, the porcupine mascot for the Libertarians is like legit savage. And I want it on a t-shirt or something. I think it's great though. It's like the scrappy underdog. I love it.
Yeah, you had asked me, why porcupines last time. So I'm so glad that you know why we call ourselves porcupine. And of course, the porcupine was the symbol of the Free State Project well before the Libertarians adopted it. The Libertarians adopted it, years later. And so, you'll see it also within the Libertarian Party or general libertarianism. But it was the original symbol of the Free State Project.
I think that's amazing. Now, do you know how that was landed on as the symbol? Because I don't know that story.
Who came up with the idea, but we should have, we're having a Porcupine Day on February 5th. And I would like to have somebody tell that story and maybe even bring the originator who came up with the idea of the porcupine up so we could all clap for him.
I think that'd be a great idea, Dennis.
It's probably a her. As a matter of fact, I think I know who it is, but we'll see.
All right.
So you had left the left, Karlyn.
Yes.
And you had tried out the Republicans, but you became quickly disillusioned. You heard about the Libertarians, how much they had upset the Democrats more than the Republicans ever do. And so you said, well, maybe I'll check them out. And you were intrigued to learn about libertarians. But that's really kind of where you were when we first started a conversation.
Well, can I add a little bit more nuance to that? Just for so after I left the Democrats, I was kind of just like, I was just an independent for all of 2020. After I left, I didn't join the Republicans. I was just kind of like floundering in the land of the politically homeless. And every time I would talk to someone about why I left the left and kind of what my values were, they told me almost every single time, Dennis, they were like, you're a libertarian, Karlyn. And I really fought against this because I was like, no, the Libertarian Party sucks. And let's just acknowledge that the Libertarian Party does have its fair of suck involved in it for many reasons that we don't need to get into in this stream. But people would tell me over and over again, they're like, you're a libertarian. And I was really fighting against it. And then Joe Jorgensen sent out a Black Lives Matter tweet. And I was like, nope. like that kind of put the nail in the coffin. But then I started meeting libertarians in New Hampshire and free staters, and you guys were just like a total different type of libertarian for me, so that started getting my attention. And then when you noted Nick Sarwark at the convention last year, that really got my attention. And I started hanging out with you guys and found out that that was a much better home for me than Republicans.
So would you actually call yourself a libertarian today?
Yes, I do call myself a libertarian today.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Now, everyone knows that the left, of course, are the people who really care about others the most, right? They care about the oppressed people, the poor, minorities, the trans, the gays, the women.
Mhm.
How could you have turned your back on a constituency that you used to care so much about to join the libertarians, whom everybody knows only care about themselves?
Because I think that, well, first off, the left are not the kind, empathetic left, and I think, I know you're asking a little bit in jest, but I'll answer the question seriously. Listen, I think we've seen throughout the course of the pandemic, a lot of people have had their inner authoritarian come out in them. Now, when I was on the left because I was a '90s Democrat. Like I don't I like the reason that I joined the Democrats in the '90s is I didn't like how the Republicans were trying to control like what you could say and art you could consider and things you could watch on TV and video games that you could play and all that stuff. And that was originally what got me to join the Democrats in the first place. And so it was a very terrifying, though not unexpected experience for me to watch how authoritarian the left became. Not just on the left, but I think that we can agree that a lot of people on the left became very authoritarian in 2020 and in 2021. And that is just something I wanted absolutely no part of. And for me, even I obviously spent a lot of time in the MAGA movement in 2020 because I was touring with the Walkaway campaign, and well, I mean the Walkaway just had a lot of MAGA supporters, so I got to know that community pretty well. And one of the messages I kept getting from that community was, we just want to be left alone and we want freedom and liberty and all that stuff. And I was like, that sounds pretty great. But after Joe Biden got inaugurated, that community, the political right for me, changed a lot. And I started seeing their inner authoritarian come out. And I'm just sitting here like, I just want to be left alone. I don't care about controlling other people's lives. And even if I have ideas that I might disagree on with other people, like we can agree to disagree, man. I want to control my life and I want to be left alone in order to do it. And I believe that everyone should be able to live whatever life they want to live. And it's really none of my business if they make mistakes or do stupid things. And I don't particularly care or have like any interest in trying to control other people's lives. And so when it came down to it, the libertarians were the only people that I really could find that were like, yeah, we just, we don't want to control other people's lives. And it's like, one of the things that I really appreciated, and I think I absolutely saw this at Porcfest, and I've absolutely seen it in my involvement with the LPNH ever since. It's like, even when there are disagreements, no one's trying to control someone else.
Mm.
And so that like individual like sovereignty, for lack of a better term, is something that is really appealing to me and something I really enjoy about this community.
Yeah. Now, you were a native Granite Stater. Is that not true? You were born and raised
No,
in Michigan?
I was born and raised in Vermont.
Ah, got you.
Mhm.
And so when did you move to the Granite State?
11 it'll be 11 years on May 14th.
But you did not move as part of the Free State Project, and you were a leftist at that time. Is that true?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was a leftist. I would say I was like more of like a moderate centrist Democrat. I was really not politically engaged at all when I moved here. I moved here for a job, and then I just ended up staying. But I'm really glad it worked out that way.
But at some point, you heard about the Free State Project.
Mhm.
My guess is that you heard it from your Democratic friends, and you heard kind of a fairly negative story about it.
Oh,
Um,
yes, absolutely. I knew about the Free State Project, and what I my understanding of the Free State Project up until probably February 2021, something like that, was this crazy group of secessionists are living in New Hampshire and they're never going anywhere and they're ruining everything. That was my basic understanding, but I had never met a free stater was the thing. Like so it's like one of those things that like now that I'm involved in the community, like I'm like, how did I miss that this was here in the first place? Like free staters are everywhere. You guys are doing so much stuff. And but like I had never actually met a free stater up until like probably 2021, or maybe I'm sure I had, but I just didn't know it. You know what I'm saying?
yep. Now, after a year, do you consider yourself a Free Stater?
Well, I don't know if I can though because I didn't move here for the Free State Project, and so I think that I definitely support the Free State Project, and if it's kosher, I would probably consider myself that. But the thing of it is I think that the people who move who pick up and move here to New Hampshire purely to be part of the Free State Project, that to me gets a little extra cred, a little extra clout in my, that is a big commitment to pick up and move to be part of this liberty movement. And so for me, I feel a little uncomfortable calling myself a free stater because I didn't do that. I moved here, but not for that reason. And I don't want to take clout away from people who did move for that reason, but I'm certainly incredibly supportive of the Free State Project.
I can tell you from a lot of Free Staters' perspectives, the people who come to say, yes, we believe in freedom and we are dedicated to making this into a free state, who already had lived here, actually get more credit. For the migrants, we're coming in and we're going, is this going to work out? And then we go and we find people like yourself and Bill. And I mean, there's so many people who are already here and they go, oh my goodness, what is this free state? Oh, I've always wanted this. So, we actually consider you guys to be the OG free staters.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll put Derek in that category as
Oh
well.
my goodness. Oh, yes. I'm so excited about Derek.
He's the
Yes.
best. Mhm.
So now, before you went to Porcfest, you were really taken aback by the lack of top-down control of the festival that I was exercising.
It was
Uh,
so confusing to me. I had no idea what was going on.
and I tried to explain to you how libertarianism is really an exercise in letting go. Now I still have to lead, but I'm not going to control. So I let go and I support people in coming and bringing things up from the bottom up.
Mhm.
How did this show up? This kind of bottom up versus top down for you at the festival? Did you notice it during the festival, or what? How did this show up, or did it show up?
I would say, yeah, I mean, I would definitely say it showed up in a couple of different ways. I mean, like there are just so many different like excuse me, like activities and presentations that take place at Porkfest, and it's different than a lot of other like events that I do that are more, you know, I don't want to say properly, but like had that more of like that structure and that hierarchy, because it's like there would just be pop-up events that would take place that like maybe wouldn't even be scheduled the day before, but then all of a sudden they pop up out of nowhere. And it's not like you're going into like these conference rooms and sitting around and it's very stuffy. Like, I gave a beginner's knitting workshop at a picnic table with a couple other people, and it was great. I mean, and it's like it's one of those things. And all what I really loved about Porkfest was, I mean, it's at a campground, right? So you could just be walking around and exploring and getting a pizza or whatever, and you just start having conversations with people. And and those were some of those random conversations were some of the best experiences that I had at Porkfest. And I've continued to keep in touch with a lot of those people that I like just randomly ran into while I was getting pizza at a food truck. And so I think, the organic nature and just of the festival and how you really can come and connect with people who are interested in the same types of things that you are, and it feels much more participatory as like someone who's not an organizer, but just as someone who's just showing up and just wants to be involved. So I think I really appreciated that part of it, but there was definitely like a learning curve to get used to it, because when you're so used to going to these events that are just structured and hierarchical, it is a very different thing, and you can feel. I definitely felt a little overwhelmed at first, but you get the hang of it like really, really quickly. And by the end of the week, you're just like, you're an old pro, right?
I describe sometimes libertarianism as opposed to authoritarianism as a separation of one's personal preferences for how to live one's own life from political action of forcing one's preferences on other people to have them conform to your ways.
Hmm.
At Porkfest, I'm sure you saw all these different types of hubs, everything, just a gigantic diversity of people, everything from Christian hub to a nudist hub to S&M to political to women's hub. How did this diversity affect you? Were you surprised by it? Did you embrace it? Were you like scared by it?
The naked yoga was definitely a little bit scary, if I'm honest. I did not go to naked yoga. Don't start any rumors. Um, but no, I mean, I think that you know, there were absolutely a lot of different hubs and a lot of different people, but I think that's what made it so exciting, right? Because it's like, I can't tell you how many times I would just take off by myself or maybe with like a couple other people, and we would just like wander around the campground, just like, what's going on today? What are people up to? What are people doing? And it's like you encounter new things every time. But I think the cohesive part of it for me was that everyone was in a good mood. Everyone was like, there were good vibes by all. And even if like you don't want to go do naked yoga, or I don't know what was going on with the SMN stuff, I'm gonna have to investigate that next year. But like you could always find people that were doing something that you would want to be involved in. There was like never a dull moment. So I spent a lot of my time obviously in the Mises Caucus tent. That was like my home base where I hung out. Like, and even within the Mises Caucus tent, there were a whole bunch of us that brought our knitting, and we set up shop. We had a little knitting circle and all this stuff. So even like a little hub within a hub. And again, it's like everyone was just like in such a good mood, and everyone was like so welcoming, that it was just like you didn't really know what you were going to run into on any given day, but you were always going to run into something. There is not a lack of things to do or people to talk to or different ideas to share or things to buy or food to eat or any other things that you might want to put in your body or anything else. So no, I think there was a lot, but it wasn't. It was an approachable thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I did organize this Porcfest around what I call hubs of activity. Could you describe what a hub of activity is to newbies?
I feel like I'm getting a quiz. Okay. I mean, so there were just different. Oh God, Dennis, I don't know if my definition of hub is going to be the same as yours. There were like different like home bases for like different types of things that were all over the campground. So if you wanted to go do naked yoga, you went off into the back part of the campground where the naked yoga was, or like the hot tub that they had set up, or all that stuff. Like the Mises Caucus had their own kind of like hub in the middle of it. We like there was like stuff going on in terms of like stuff at the pavilion, stuff in other places that was set up. Like Americans for Liberty had like a hub where they were doing presentations. The Quill had a hub. The Shell had a hub. Like, is that what you mean by hub? Because I'm just thinking of like the different kind of outlets that people could go to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there were hubs that I call lounges, which are just kind of
Ah,
places
yes.
where you can hang out. And you've already mentioned the Mises as a lounge that you actually went to a lot and enjoyed and just hung out and talked to people and drank and ate and chatted and knit and things like that. Were there any other lounges that you enjoyed?
Any other lounges that I enjoyed? I mean, I stopped by the Quills and the Shells. The Shells was great, actually. I thought that was really good. Um, any other lounges? I don't know. I enjoyed that pizza food truck. I treated that as a lounge on a couple different days. I'll tell you what, they had some of the best pizza I've ever
Is that
had.
little Zoe's?
I don't know what it was called, but it had like this pizza that had honey on it and bacon, and like it was like some of the best pizza I've ever had. So there were a couple of days where I definitely just sat there. And what was funny about that food truck though is like anytime, so when you order pizza from that food truck, sometimes you're standing around for like a while because they get a lot of people there. I had so many great conversations just like pulling up a couple of like crates and sitting down waiting for our food. So I'm gonna call that a hub, even though it wasn't, because it actually felt like a hub to me.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it's a vending hub, which is
Mhm.
a little bit different in some people's mind. But yeah, that's exactly it's these hubs kind of mesh together. I mean, we have also hubs that I call venues that put on talks, and
Mm.
these talks might be very intimate talks. There might be just three or four people, or it might be a demonstration, or a discussion, or it might be a formal presentation, but we had several that were called venues all around, scattered all around. Um, Now you talked about some of the
Can
organizations that.
wait, can I build on that for a
Yeah,
second? Because
please.
I want it. So like I sometimes when people think of festivals like this, and obviously some of the imagery that you show is like the big pavilion talk with like Dave Smith or like all these things, and it's great because it's like outside, like you're still in the mountains, all that stuff, so it feels really good. But I actually really enjoyed the smaller talks a
Mhm.
lot more because I liked the intimacy of it. That's just
Mhm.
something that you don't get at a lot of events. And even when they're doing these smaller talks, I mean, you maybe have like, you know, a dozen or couple dozen people at those talks, but you're interacting with like really big figures. Like Tom Woods was doing, I saw it walk by like Tom Woods doing a couple talks where, you know, he had maybe like, it wasn't even that many people around him, and you're getting to interact with him up close, right? And so I actually found the smaller talks to be much more invigorating for me because it left more time for interaction and conversation and things like that. But not that I don't love the big ones, but that was my experience with it.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, you've already talked about a lot of the one-on-one, the serendipitous meetings, the serendipitous events that might spring up, the venues that have these smaller talks and demonstrations, and you talked about the yarn, the intro to knitting that you did. My guess is that it probably wasn't a lot of people there. Were there a lot of
No.
people there?
No, but that actually worked out well because, to be quite frank, knitting is something that you actually have to teach people, and so I had my hands full with the people that were there. There were a couple of people that showed up, like Rachel showed up, and she didn't need the intro knitting one, but she just kind of sat back and knitted, and that was fine too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and these hubs are created by the attendees. Some of them do have a backing. Like you mentioned, AFP and Mises, and and so they'll have backing, and they'll have a bigger hub. They'll take over more campsites, and they'll have nicer tents. But really, a hub is anyone can put out a hub. If you have a campsite, put up a tent, a canopy tent, and you can have talks about anything that you want. And it's really just a way of attracting different pockets of people. And I think that's one of the reasons why you found it so intimate with these smaller talks, because they were oftentimes very specific on an interest that you held deeply, and so did the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would come together in this intimate, passionate group and really enjoy that interaction.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that that's definitely true, and I think that, you know, for me, I've always enjoyed, like, smaller group interaction more, and I think that this is something that I really, has actually just not even at Porcfest, but just, like, with the libertarians in general. Like, I feel like, you know, sometimes there's going to be smaller groups around some of the issues and events that we hold, but the people that show up are super passionate about those issues, and so for me, it's a much more fulfilling thing than even, you know, being at a giant rally with like thousands of people because A, I don't get to interact with all those people, but B, it's also like the people that are showing up to the rally, they have any number of different interests and they might have any different levels of interest. And so I've actually something I've really kind of picked up on with the libertarians in the last year is just like focusing on really connecting with people who have the same values. And you're not going to get as many people in those groups, but you're going to get more active people in those groups, and that's actually what's more important. Now, Sam has asked a question via super chat, so I want to bring this in. What is the currency most people use to trade at Porcfest?
That's one of my questions to you.
Oh!
Sam beat me to the punch. Good going, Sam.
So do I have to answer? Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
so you can so there are all sorts of currencies at Porcfest. You can like I think I ended up using like cash or sometimes card the most because I'm a crypto noob, but there is all sorts of crypto at Porcfest. You can use that if you want to. They have gold backs that they have there, and I know that some people actually trade in little hunks of silver.
And there's also a big bartering
Yes, bartering.
trade going. That's really
There
interesting.
is there was a lot of bartering for different types of beer. I
I
found is like because like so what and this is a lesson that I'm actually going to implement this year. I'm going to be bringing up a whole bunch of different craft beers this year because I got a room at the
Smart
motel
idea.
this year, and so what people do is like they have their backpack full of beer or seltzer and they trade.
Especially if you have something really good. I mean, it's people come from all over the United States, and there's all these craft beers, and it's just so great to have the taste. In New Hampshire, we've had this explosion of craft beers because the Free Staters got rid of some of these laws that were holding back the microbreweries.
Mhm.
And so, we also have some really good beers. So it's a lot of fun. That's a fun aspect of it. Yes.
And the thing too, and this is for people who are thinking of coming up who have kids, like your kids can make a boat ton of money at Porcfest. I'll tell you what, there are kids running around selling all manner of thing, and they're selling them like there are some kids that are like selling like sticks they collected in the woods. There's kids that are selling bumper stickers. Like kids are put to work at Porcfest, and they can make a lot of money if they're selling stuff.
Yeah. I always say that the ideal age are the preteens for Porcfest. They have the best experience because they're ready to kind of spread their wings a little bit. It's a safe environment for them, and they are so entrepreneurial. They are so excited that they can actually do things that add value to adults. And yes, you're right. There were kids who actually left with over $1,000.
Yeah. It's true, and I would always test them. If a child came up to try to sell me something, I didn't let that child off the hook easy. I didn't just give them $5 for a bumper sticker. I made them explain to me why I needed that bumper sticker to really put their help them hone their sales skills.
That's right. And that's a really important skill to have, a really important
Mhm.
skill. So there were 700 or so events at Porcfest, not even including the serendipitous ones. How did you wend your way through this gigantic number of events, some big, some small, all different types of
Mhm.
interest?
So I'm gonna be honest, I am not a planner when it comes to going to events, and I think I'm probably gonna do a little bit more planning coming up this year. And this is true of me for any type of event, any type of conference or anything I go to. I never plan out what I'm gonna do ahead of time. And usually I might have like one or two things that like I really want to do. So I think for me there were obviously some big things. Like I wanted to see Dave Smith when he was at the Pavilion. I wanted to go to comedy night. There were a couple like movie things showing that I wanted to go to. And there were a couple like small talks, particularly around people that were doing things that I have interest in, leaving the left or critical race theory or things like that. But mostly I kind of just I let fate take its course in regards to talks and things. But I will say that looking back on the schedule last year, I really wish I had planned out more because, I would find out that there were like interesting things that I wanted to learn how to do that they were giving talks on that I was like, "Oh my god, I missed it and I have to wait until next year." Yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend for people thinking of coming. There is a lot going on, but I do think it's like well worth your time to kind of try to figure out what you want to do. But also, I mean, there is something to be said for just like letting fate take its course and you show up where you show up and you see what you see. And I think that there's opportunity for like a good mix of that.
Mm. Yeah, so I mean, it was funny because I actually wrote a little software program to help people create their own customized schedule, right? Because I was going, geez, 700, and I'm such a nerd, so I had this thing where you could basically go in and say, yeah, I have no interest in these items and these items. I might have a modicum of interest. These are really exciting to me.
Hmm.
And then it would give you kind of an ordered list by time of things, kind of a customized, personalized sheet. Let's just say that I found out that there's not as many people who are as nerdy as an MIT Porcfest organizer.
I mean, libertarians can be pretty nerdy. I have discovered for sure, but you
I,
know,
I think I was one of the few who actually used it. I mean, it was great for me because I didn't get a chance to go to a lot of things, and so when I had a spare moment and I could go for like 10 or 15 minutes, I had oh geez, okay, this is this time here, and I really wanted to see this, so I'm going to scoot in there and just say hi and listen to the beginning of it.
yeah.
Um,
Mega Web says, I made a color-coded list of talks and events I wanted to attend. That went out the window on day one because there's so much to do, which is true. And I gotta tell you, so I don't know if you have this on your list to ask me, but like it took a minute for me to learn how to navigate the campground. And I know that sounds ridiculous because like it's a campground, there's a map, it's like not the hardest thing in the world, but there's just so much going on that I was so confused about where stuff actually was. That took a minute for me to understand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you know, I actually encourage people to, you know, kind of enjoy Porcfest well before Porcfest. And you know, we have like these chat rooms and things like that where people can talk to other people. They can start planning out, you know, if they're going to be part of a hub or help with a hub, or they can plan out and go, ooh, I can lead a group that does this. You know, and then enter it into the into the schedule. And then what I do is as people start entering in events and hubs, I advertise. I say, you know, oh, this guy's going to be doing this, or this person's going to be doing that, just so you start getting a sense of the breadth of activities that people are thinking about offering. But you were you in Porcfest Plans, the Facebook group?
I was, and I was also in, I think, the Telegram group.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Were they useful to you, or?
I find the Telegram group to be really confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I did use Porcfest plans on Facebook a couple times. I probably found Telegram confusing, to be honest, just because it's like I feel like there are like 8,000 different apps, and like there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Signal, there's Telegram, there's all these different like that to me is it's just a lot. So that wasn't anything against that particular group.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like I have app overload. But no, I definitely found the Facebook group helpful every time I popped in there and I was actually like looking for something.
Right. And now we actually had Telegram at Porcfest so that people could, you know, that there were various affinity groups that had their own groups. You know, the women had a group and the Christians had a group, and so they could actually communicate with each other during Porcfest. I don't think a lot of people used that feature. I'm assuming that you did not, given what you just said about Telegram.
Well, I did not, but it was also because there were a couple reasons why I don't think I used it at Porcfest. One, like service was really, really spotty up there, which is just like you can't do anything about that. That just is what it is. But service was a little spotty for me.
Mountain.
But it was also like it had to do with the battery life on my phone. Now this year I am equipped with a new iPhone that my husband just got me for Christmas. And so I have fancy battery life now, so that might actually change.
So we talked a little bit about hubs and how different attendees might be inspired to create a hub. They might create a lounge just to hang out. You know, they might say, you know, geez, you know, I'm an international. I was born in a different country. I would love to have set up a place where other foreign-born people can come and talk and, you know, and chat with each other. You know, but also we have all these events where people might give a talk, and you gave at least one talk, and then you gave the little workshop on knitting.
Yeah. I actually gave 2 talks on critical race theory. Yeah.
Oh, so you gave 2 talks. One was at one was in the 101 series.
Yeah, one was in the 101 series, and one was at the AFP tent.
Yeah, so just so people know, I provide a little 101 series for people who aren't necessarily all that familiar with libertarianism or with economics or with the Free State Project or with the various tools that we use, etc. And so it's a good way, you know, to kind of get out of the milieu and come and just kind of get a little bit more background. People are going to be talking as within Porcfest as though you already know these things, and of course they're kind, so they'll explain things. But this is a way that you can kind of get kind of a little accelerated lesson plan. And so you gave that for a critical race theory. How did your talks go?
I mean, and both of them went really well. The AP one was a little bit smaller, so it was one of those smaller, more community things, which is it was also got like moved around a couple times, so I think people were confused about the time. But whatever, that is what it is. But I will say, like the one in the 101 series that was in like this room above the office, I thought that was great. The room was really filled up. There was a lot of interest in it. Like people were asking really, really, really great questions. And it was really good to connect with people who were interested in that topic. So I had a wonderful time. It was probably one of my favorite talks on critical race theory that I've ever given. And Dennis, I want to put you on the spot. So, as I said in my intro, I have this here book coming out that will be out in time for Porcfest. And what I would like to do at Porcfest this year is I want to organize a little brainstorming sesh about different ways that we can fight back against the woke that are like a little subversive and kind of like throwing sand in their gears, like James Lindsay always says. Is that something I'm going to be able to do at Porcfest this year, Dennis?
Well, what do you mean? Is that you're asking me as though I run the whole thing? I just give tools to people. Of
If
course,
only
if
you
you
were
have
like the
some,
organizer.
and that's actually my question: is what would you recommend to somebody who has an idea like that, or who has a passion area? They're going to Porcfest. How would they be able to offer their talk or their discussion or their panel or their demo or their workshop within Porcfest?
I think they talk to you about getting on the schedule, is how they offer it.
Well, my suggestion actually would be that they talk to one of the venue owners,
Ooh.
right? Because we have this distributed system where venue owners, they have these places, they set them up. They may be around themes. There might be a crypto venue or a venue about foreign policy or a venue, so they may have themes, but they're always looking for people who are passionate and really interested in giving a talk. And so I would recommend that what you do is you actually just schedule with one of the venues. It's going to be, some of the venues can handle as many as, I don't know, maybe 80 or 90 people. I really only run two venues. I run the Pavilion, which is 800 people. And so I need somebody, it's something that, will bring in 200 people at least. Mm-hmm. And I run the 101 series where, we have kind of introductions and stuff like that. And of course, if you have something that are along those two themes, come talk to me. But other than that, there's another, 20 or 30 people who are setting up these venues. And they look for exciting, interesting topics. And, the one that you told me is a really interesting, exciting topic that would be great at one of these venues, but I don't control the venue. It's just the attendee who sets up the tent and puts out some chairs.
All right. Well, I'll have to find a venue to have the talk at then, Dennis. You're brushing me off. It's okay. I don't mind. I won't hold it against you.
Well, if you go to Porcfest Plans or you go to the Telegram group, I think it's Porcfest Attendee Chat. You'll see people will say, "Oh, I'm going to have this type of venue," and you can see the list of venues as they start up, and then you just go and query them. You say, "Hey, I want to do this," or "Would you be open to me doing that?" And they'll say, "Oh, well, how about Thursday morning? I'm wide open." And you say, "Okay, I'll take 11 o'clock."
Sweet.
So much of the schedule is built up that way, bottom up. And see, here you fell into the top-down thing. You treated me as though I were some sort of dictator. I would say, "Oh yeah, well, I'll put you in Sarah's tent."
You Sarah. Coordinated my talk last year, Dennis. What was I supposed to think?
Well, no, that's not true. The one that you had in AP, you said?
Yeah, but the 101 series.
Oh, right. The 101 series, I had you in that group there. And we might be able to do something for newbies there too.
Yeah, let's do it.
So,
we can do both
so if you have something for newbies, something that's an introduction. But, but then there was another thing that you actually sounded like you wanted to workshop.
I do. Well, you know what? Actually,
Which
this
is really interesting, and
well,
that's not a newbie thing. That's
well,
that's something that I would highly recommend. You get an intimate group together who are really excited
no,
about.
that's a really good idea. But now that we're talking about this, like, the idea that popped into my mind is, what if we could get like an intro kind of like 101 session scheduled earlier in Porcfest, and then maybe a couple days later we all come together based on the intro that we've already had, and we can come together and do some brainstorming and some like interactive stuff in a different venue. That seems like it could work out, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great one too. As a matter of fact, I oftentimes will recommend that to people who
Mm-hmm.
who are really passionate about an area. How do you build it up over the course of the week? Right? It's a week
Mm-hmm.
long thing. So if you have an area that you're really excited about, you might do a talk, kind of an intro doc talk early on, and then later on you do kind of a workshop like you're talking about, and then maybe in another area you have a visionary, the future. So it's a great way of doing things. The shoot does it that way. They'll have like an introduction to gun safety early on in the week, and then they'll have another talk about places within New Hampshire to shoot and what the rules are, and how we are if not the second most constitutionally protected firearms place. And then they'll actually take people out to shoot
Mm-hmm.
late in the week. And so, they have a newbie shoots, and sometimes they even have an advanced shoot. So it's, and so it actually builds on each other, and you can kind of say, I'm really interested in this, and I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And then it's not just but there'll be someone else who's showing 3D printing of guns. And so,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and so you could create your own thread given whatever you're interested in. Yeah, you could create that with one person like Karlyn around the woke, or if you're really interested in woke, you could actually create. Oh, this person's talking about something about the woke. This person, and you could actually create your own little path through the 700 or so events.
Well, I'm gonna have to go to the newbie shoot. And I'm sure my husband will want to go to the advanced shoot. He was sick last year during Porcfest, but I've got him. I think, committed to coming up for a longer stay at Porcfest this year, which I'm really excited about because I think he would really like it. And the 3D printed guns were so cool. Like, one of the things that I liked about Porcfest is people just like walk around with their guns, like displaying them, like men display their 3D printed guns at Porcfest, like women display their jewelry. That's exactly what it was. I loved it. I thought it was great. Emphasize, who you guys should know, Emphasize has now been unblocked on Twitter, so we can resolve that and move on. Says, I wonder how many college staff bought stock in hair dye companies to supplement their paychecks from all that student loan debt. Emphasize, I don't know the answer to that, but I do appreciate the super chat. Guys, if you're enjoying this chat I'm having with Dennis so far, please make sure you mount that like button for me. As a reminder, I am streaming at 5 o'clock every single day, Sunday through Thursday, on this channel. Sometimes I do news and stuff. Sometimes we have illustrious guests like Dennis. All right, Dennis, where are we going from here? What other questions do you have for me?
A lot of newbies want to know what days that they should go, and I tell them, that they ought to come in early and get themselves situated. They should find a refuge, so when they get a little bit overwhelmed, they can find a place, a lounge or a food truck, or some place that they can kind of relax in. And they should also kind of make connections with a few people that they can kind of touch with during the week. So what's your thought? If a newbie came to you and said, when should I go? What's the right day? It's a week long, and what day should I go?
I definitely think it's good advice to come up early. I'm actually going to be there for the whole thing this year from start to finish. I think last year I came up on Wednesday, so still pretty early. And so I was really thankful to get there early and to kind of get my bearings and to get acclimated, because once the weekend here to like Friday hit, it was insane. There were just a lot of people there, and I had to leave early, so I can't imagine how many people were there for like the last weekend of it. But I would definitely recommend that people get there early if you've never been before. Also, because, I mean, to be quite frank, especially if you haven't been to New Hampshire before, maybe your first time here, like Porcfest is like really up into the mountains. So it's a little bit of a drive to get there if you're coming in through the airport, or like a much longer drive if you're coming into Boston. I definitely recommend people fly into Manchester because it's going to be more convenient for you. But like you want to be able to take your time and not feel rushed and enjoy things. So I definitely I think like the more time you have, the better. Also because it's like I said, it's one of those things where you can walk around that campground every single day and find new things to do every day. So, you don't want to feel rushed. You want to feel like you have some downtime. And I think one of the really big benefits of me for Porcfest is like when I went to Porcfest this past year, I was probably at the highest stress level I was at of like the entire year. And it was really nice to be able to be in the woods with really good people, just hanging out, having a good time. For me, it was like a vacation. It was like downtime. And so I think that that just works out much better when you have a little bit more time to appreciate that.
Now, you actually knew a lot of people who were at Porkfest already, so you didn't really need to cultivate some contacts that you could kind of connect with during the whole week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I obviously knew the guys from the LPNH and the Mises Caucus, but I'm gonna be honest, like I was still pretty new in that whole space when I got to Porkfest. So although I knew people, I wouldn't really say that like I knew them. And I think definitely, I felt much more, it's weird like the position that I'm in because like it's just weird. Like when I'm trying to integrate into new groups, it's like people always think like I have an ulterior motive for content or any of that when I'm just like trying to like make human connections and find people that I like to hang out with. And I definitely felt, what I said to Ben, who's one of like the Mises Caucus guys, it was like 2020 was such a weird year for me. And I said to him, I was like, every event that I went through in 2020, and frankly, the first half of 2021 too, like everyone knew who I was and everyone wanted something from me. And
Mhm.
so in Porkfest, I had the time to just like relax and chill and get to know people as people. And it was so nice for me because like no one, it wasn't about Karlyn on freaking YouTube or doing walkaway stuff or like however people perceive me. It was actually just like really getting to know people. And I definitely felt even for like a lot of the folks like in the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire, I felt like it was a really good activity for all of us to come through and to get together, and it was like an extended meetup, which was really really great. So even though yes I knew people, I definitely feel like I knew them better after Porkfest and I felt much more comfortable. And I also think it did absolutely give me the opportunity to connect with people that I didn't know and would just like run into at random places. And like I said, it's like one of those things where if you don't listen, like I'm an introvert. People don't believe me when I say that, but I am. And I know that a lot of libertarians are introverts. A lot of people who are at the event are introverts. Like if you are an introvert and you're coming to this event, like you are among your people. Like we're all weird. We're all awkward. We all don't like going to social things. It's like weird to meet people. But when you get a whole bunch of introverts together, it suddenly is a little bit more comfortable to be able to strike up those conversations.
So this was the first time that Porkfest had ever been sold out in 18 years. We actually were two-thirds larger than we had ever been in over the 18-year time
Crazy.
frame. Did it feel like it was too many people for you? I mean, being an introvert and stuff.
No, it really didn't. But I mean, maybe like like up on the weekend, like towards the end, it was getting to be like a lot of people. But even then, Dennis, I don't feel like it was overwhelming because I feel like the campground. I mean, to be really honest, I think you could have gone a little bit bigger.
Mm.
I think the campground could have handled it. I think there was more parking than I expected there to be. So that that was actually the piece that I was really worried about was the parking. But that actually turned out fine. No, I thought it was a very manageable crowd.
Good. And then you were, I mean, did you change your attitude towards libertarians by being amongst so many libertarians and such a variety of them?
I don't think I changed my attitude necessarily because I don't think at that point I didn't view libertarians badly. Like I had already joined the LPNH, I was already starting to get involved in stuff. And so I didn't have like a negative view of libertarians, but I think it is interesting to be immersed in any sort of like community for, an extended period of time. And I think it absolutely helped me understand the very specific culture of libertarians a little bit more in terms of voluntarism, in terms of like, just like one of the things that I've brought this up on a couple of streams, and I think I may have mentioned it to you at some point. And this seems like a weird thing, but it was just it was one of those moments where I was like, aha, this speaks a lot about this community. Was I think it was like the Dave Smith event in the pavilion or something, where after the event, like, so many people had come to that event that they had to set up chairs outside and like all these extra rows of chairs. And there was announcements saying, please just pick up your chair and stack them over here. And everyone just did it. And it was like one of those things where everyone in the community was invested in keeping this thing nice and keeping it, and just keeping it running and functioning, and, didn't just run right off and leave their chairs or something. And for me, it was one of those things that like, I felt like I was watching a type of society that the Democrats might believe, like, this is how communism is supposed to work. Everyone chips in. You're all part of the community and all that. Of course, we know that communism never actually works out that way. But I felt like I was watching the real life manifestation of how that might work out. But it worked out because everyone had chosen to be there and had a vested interest in keeping the event nice and in
Mhm.
keeping things on track. And it's one of those things that is a small thing, but it is actually really specific to libertarians. The other thing that I would say is like, what I really appreciate about the libertarians is I think that more than any other group that I've been a part of, they are by far the most intellectual. They are the thinkers. And so if you go to like Democrat events, you're not going to have the same types of conversations that you are at Porcfest. Even if you go to like, CPAC, which I went to last February, I'm not going to again this year. Not because I hate CPAC or anything. I'm just not going. But the conversations that I would have at like something like CPAC, very, very different from the libertarians. And I feel like they take a much more thoughtful approach to things. And I just think the conversations are much more intellectually invigorating. Even if I don't agree with all the ideas, even if I think some of the ideas, especially about like, you know, I don't know. I feel like I've gotten like this close to anarchism in the last year. Like I started out a year ago saying I think some of the things you guys believe are crazy, but like okay, this is going to go a little bit off Porcfest for a second, but my view of libertarianism probably a year ago was something to the effect of the libertarians are the only ones pushing back in any way against this authoritarian regime. And so even though I don't consider myself an anarchist, and I think that's kind of crazy, I think it's good to advocate for that, because if you advocate for the most extreme possible position, you might end up here. And like we need to pull back what's happening in this country from like just blatant authoritarianism and at least start to get a little bit more balance. In the last year, though, I have gone off the rails. I'm like, defund everything, get the government out of our lives. Like, I hate everything. And so, again, I think that this is like, if, Michael Malice always says conservatives or progressives driving the speed limit. Like, I really do believe that this community is the only community that will actually pull us back from like the edges of authoritarianism. And so, like, a lot of the conversations around that I thought were good. I think I just went way off track of what your original question actually was, but
Well,
that's
you
where
know,
we went.
I oftentimes will describe it as an immersion experience into what a Liberty Village might look like, and of course it's not specific to any particular Liberty Village, but that feel and that allowance and respect of each other, and that kind of bubbling up of the creativity, which is so often throttled down by the state, but allowing it to bubble up and create, all these fantastic talks and hubs and interactions that you experienced.
Yeah. And I will say too, like, and I don't know if this is one of your questions, but it was like an extremely safe place to be.
Mm,
Even though like, it's my understanding that like there wasn't even that much theft. And when you're talking about a campground with people like literally just leaving their stuff out everywhere, like there not even being a whole lot of theft that's going on, like it was an extremely safe place to be. Kids are running around, and it seems a little like, I know that my old lefty friends would freak out because again, you walk into Porcfest, you're going to see people carrying really big guns around. And so for a lot of people who are afraid of guns, that might be a really scary thing, but it just felt like the safest place in the world.
yeah, I remember the first time I went up to Porcfest. I was totally freaked out by the guns, totally flipped, because I hadn't seen that. I had
Mhm.
only lived in authoritarian cities, and and just seeing people just kind of walking around. Now, of course, they're all safe, and they you can see that they're safe, and there's these are very responsible people and all that type of stuff. But it I oftentimes will talk about how being amongst so many people who respect me enough that they will not try to use violence, either their own or the states, to change me. It's actually, for me, I get this literally palpable feeling of peace in that crowd, even though they're really diverse, even though there's a bunch of people doing things. I go, boy, I would never do that. But they're doing things, and it's their business. But it's this live and let live, and accepting that people are different. Did you feel any of that during your?
Oh, I absolutely felt that. And honestly, Dennis, that's one of the reasons I love the libertarians so much. Is it not even just at Porcfest, although it was absolutely at Porcfest, but just in general for me, I love the live and let live thing. I love the idea that like I might not agree with you and I might find some of the things you say offensive. And God knows sometimes I go out of my way to be offensive in order to make the point that we're allowed to be offensive. But like I like the attitude that I'm not going to try to impose my will on you. And it really is like, even to this day, again, like I keep going back, like the last 2 years have been pretty crazy for me in terms of just like this political evolution. And there have been so many instances where people have frankly been trying to control my speech and trying to dictate what I can and cannot say and what I can and cannot believe. And it's even for me, I still feel like a little shell shock, to be honest, about how much people have tried to control my speech and my thoughts over the last couple of years. And, sometimes it feels very weird to me. Like even when I'm interacting with like the LPNH or something in New Hampshire, like I feel like I'm just like waiting for them to try to control what I'm saying and what I think, especially because like I have some of the like the platform that I have, and it never happens. It never, even when I say something, even when I had that Holocaust tweet that got me in trouble that was taken out of context Newsweek. But like, even that, it was like, who were the very first people to step up and have my back? It was libertarians. And they didn't waffle. And they said, we might not agree with what she said, but you know what? We have her back. And I really, really, really appreciated that because I feel like, again, I know this is a me thing. I understand that, but I do not like it when people try to control what I can say and what I can think. And this is literally the only community I found that has not tried to do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's great.
I mean, it is very impressive, especially if one is not kind of in the mold of everyone else, to be in a society where you're allowed to be yourself. And it's, I think it's actually a relaxing thing that, when you get there early on, you still, you're coming from an authoritarian state and you're still having this pretense. And then as the week goes on, you realize it's okay to be you.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's acceptable. And of course, in a libertarian society, we want everyone to be themselves and to express themselves in whatever ways that they want. And who knows what that creates? Who knows the fruits that will come from that? You see that at Porcfest, though. You see what comes when you allow people to be themselves.
And to be honest, Porcfest for me came at a time when I was undergoing the worst cancellation I've ever undergone. I was being canceled by thousands of people on the internet. And so I definitely arrived there and I was extremely stressed out. Like I had just had my house doxxed. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. I was actually really afraid because like my address had shown up all over the internet on like the day that I left for Porcfest. And so Victor was home alone and I was like freaking out. I was like, well, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I know Victor has guns and he knows how to use them, and we worked that out. But I say that because it was like I was like at peak, like I was peak get off my lawn when I arrived at Porcfest last year. And it was one of those things that over the course of the several days that I spent there, I was able to absolutely decompress from that whole thing. And, I like that you said, like, you learn that you can be yourself. I really do think that Porcfest last year was a pivotal moment for me on my journey where I started to have more of an unconditional acceptance of who I am, and really kind of like expressing that, trying unapologetically. Now, I'm not perfect about it. Sometimes there are things that I'll say that they, again, get me in a little bit of trouble. But like, I do think that that's important because I am like a very creative person, and I
Right.
think that sometimes when you're in creative conversations, you need to go to extremes sometimes. Like, you need to be able to have the full breadth of ideas available to you. And if you can't talk about the full breadth of ideas, then you can't create something that's really, really great and impactful. And so for me, like, that comfort level that I've been able to achieve from being involved in this in the last year has just been inextricably valuable because before all this, I feel like I had put limits in my own head about what I could say and what I could talk about and what I could think about based on, quite frankly, what's considered to be socially acceptable on Twitter.
Right.
And that's not conducive to actually being in a state of creation when you put these limits on yourself. And so I think being at Porkfest was a very key part of me, for me, of trying to like remove those limits and disappear them. And even the culture with, like, again, the LPNH and the Mises Caucus has just continued to reinforce that for the rest of the year. And I've only benefited from that. So it's something that I feel very grateful to be involved with.
We should actually have a conversation at some point in the future about personal growth and libertarianism and how what the
Yeah.
intersection of that is. Because you're touching on something that's really important. We face such large problems, and what happens is people go, we have this problem, but you're only allowed to talk about it in this narrow little window.
Right.
But and you can only talk about solutions in this narrow. Well, what if the solution is so, what if we don't understand this? What if we don't, and libertarianism is it doesn't require this. So I shouldn't say it is, but the same mentality that leads to libertarianism is one of opening up the world of possibility, of understanding greater, who I am, and that we can be good problem solvers. So,
I
anyways,
I love that idea. We'll schedule that talk for sure.
let's do that at some point. It's really an interesting topic for me. So now you talked a little bit about your changing views of libertarianism and yourself. What about over the free state? I mean, we put on Porkfest primarily to suggest to people that they don't have to be miserable in their authoritarian states. That especially the most rabid freedom lovers, that they can actually come to one place where we're all congregating, we're all moving to, and help us build a free state. Did your views of the free state change while you were there at Porkfest and experienced this?
Oh, absolutely, unequivocally. And I think that, I would say it was a really natural progression for me for where I was at. And how I've explained it is, people know that I'm on Locals, obviously. And the reason that Dave Rubin built Locals was he wanted to create these like small communities where people could connect with like-minded people. And he thought that was the future of the internet. Well, Porkfest for me took that idea from an internet community and put it into reality. And
Hmm.
it's like this real world thing, and it's like, I have so much of a greater appreciation for living in New Hampshire, and I feel so lucky and blessed that I ended up here. I feel like it was fate that I ended up here, because it really is that idea of creating these communities of like-minded people in action. And, I know people, because someone posted in the Porkfest plan group about it, people think that like I'm talking about this stuff or like promoting the Free State Project because I just want attention on the internet or I feel like it's a personal publicity thing. That's not it at all. Like, I feel extremely blessed to be a part of this community. The people that I've met in this community have been amazing. And to be honest, I've really come around to the idea that given the state of our world and the trends that we're seeing in every other state, especially the more blue states, like, this is the only way that we're going to be able to create a society that, people like you and I actually want to live in and actually feel like we have ownership over. And it's like, we might not agree on everything, But what we do agree on is leaving each other alone. And if we don't want to associate, then we don't have to associate. And I really have come around to this idea that creating this community of like-minded libertarians and congregating libertarians in New Hampshire is absolutely the best path forward to creating the type of place that I want to be in. And so, no, I'm 100% brought into it. I love the Free State Project. I love every Free Stater that I've met. They're just wonderful, happy people. They're happy, Dennis. Like they're
So relieved.
happy.
We're so relieved.
Like no, but it is. It's like they are different than like Democrats are obviously miserable in most places, and Democrats are especially miserable in New Hampshire, which I find a great deal of humor in. But like Republicans are now miserable too because they're living in this society that are ruled by Democrats, where Democrats have all the power positions because Republicans are lazy and don't do anything. And so like I feel like this is the only community where people are happy and they have not the only one. I don't want to say that people aren't happy other places, but that's what it feels like to be here. And every Free Stater I've met, it's like when they move here, they breathe a sigh of relief. Like I have a member of my locals community that is moving to New Hampshire in March. He's just connected with us on Facebook. Like you can just see, he announced in our community Zoom yesterday that he's moving and he's just got the apartment signed, and he's just like, it's like coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great to be around a group of people that are just generally having a positive, optimistic outlook about what's going on in the world and feeling like they're in a pretty good position in it, even if the other 49 states are a little crazy.
Yeah. And feeling a little bit of sadness that they can't join us, but relieved that we actually have that blessing of being able to breathe a little bit more free.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to wrap up with a couple of last questions.
Sure.
Now, you didn't give a rant at Soapbox Idol, even though I had suggested that you would be ideal for that.
I didn't give a rant at Soapbox Idol because I had to leave early to go to Dave Rubin's birthday party. I prioritized Dave Rubin's birthday party over Soapbox Idol, Dennis. I'm sorry. But
I will tell Dave Rubin to come out and we'll celebrate his birthday party at Porcfest.
I am trying very hard to get Dave Rubin to come to Porcfest.
I would love it. They sang happy birthday to me at Porcfest. My birthday always falls on Porcfest. Last year they sang happy birthday to me. I turned 64 and my wife wanted a happy birthday. I go, no, I want when I'm 64. And so everyone brought out their phones and sang the Beatles when I'm 64. And I was just so pleased. It was so much fun.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's where I want to be on my birthday. It's a fantastic place. As a matter of fact, some sweethearts that I know are actually going to be getting married at Porcfest.
Really?
I'm so excited about it.
Oh, that's great.
I go up early because I have to work, but also to kind of get into the space and calm down a little bit before people start arriving. And it's just so exciting to me that there's going to be this love fest right beforehand. I'm just so excited about it.
I love it. But I will be doing Soapbox Idol this year. Mark my words. Bill, you are going down.
So you don't know. So Bill won. Do you know what his talk was?
Wasn't it that people need to be like more proactive and actually do stuff? Am I making that up? Something like that?
That was it. Now, do you remember what my talk was?
I don't remember what your talk was. Remind me.
They're not your fucking friends. And
I love it.
I gave this talk at Porcfest and I got cheated out of my win because obviously I beat Bill. Bill, I'm sorry, I beat you. But they, one person voted against me because I was the organizer, and they said, "Well, you can't win." And
that's not fair.
But what I love is that it's actually become something that we're using over and over and over again in our community. So if you do a really good rant, you can actually change the culture.
I love it. Now, how long is the rant, Dennis? How long do I have to rant for?
You have 3 minutes and 3 minutes only.
God damn, I'm gonna have to practice.
Oh,
yeah. Get good. I'm gonna have to
you gotta get up there and you gotta give it, baby. You gotta give. I suggest looking at last year's rants. A lot of them were really good, or really enjoyable. And plus, you can see mine, which was the best.
I'm going to use both yours and Bill's for inspiration so I can kick both your asses.
Well, I'm not as eloquent as you, so I fear the competition, but I'm going to be ready for it.
That's okay. We'll make a rising tide lifts all boats. We will push each other to be the very best ranters that we can be.
So you're going in this year as a sophomore. Do you have any of the anxiety that you felt last year?
No, none at all. I am excited. I bought Victor and Mine's ticket to Porcfest literally the week after Porcfest. I booked the hotel because I wanted to be like on the campground like the week after Porcfest. I cannot even express how how I want June to be here right now. Not just because it's winter in New Hampshire and it's a little cold, but because like this was truly my favorite thing that I did all last year, and I can't wait to come again. And there is no nervousness. I now feel like I'm completely comfortable. I know I'm gonna have my people there, obviously with the Mises Caucus Hub, but like I know like many other people are gonna be there. I know many of my locals members are coming. I'm gonna have a whole locals contingent at
Oh
Porkfest.
my goodness, great.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. Too bad you didn't set up a locals hub or something.
I should set up something. I don't know. I need to get on the ball.
Yeah. Well, you could set up a discussion group or something like that at one of the many venues there. So that's
Excellent.
also a possibility where you just kind of you can have a meet and greet.
Excellent. I'll have to work that out.
Yeah.
I kind of envision that we're all just going to like hang out and they can do whatever they want to do and I can do. I like I said, I don't plan things in advance. I am notorious for not planning anything until the very last possible second. And so I know it's all going to work out.
So, is there anything else that you might want to tell a newbie about Porkfest, about whether they should go, about any anxiety that they might have, or
I would say that if you have questions about whether or not you should go to Porkfest, the answer is yes. You should absolutely go to Porkfest. Don't let any doubt creep in. Don't let any overwhelm creep in. And I think that the questions that I've been getting from people because I've been encouraging everyone to go buy their tickets because I know it's going to sell out soon, and I know that many of my locals are going. So if you guys haven't bought tickets yet, you need to buy tickets. I think one of the questions I've been getting is like, where do people stay if they're not staying at the campgrounds? And what I would say to that is like last year I stayed at the Lancaster Motel, which is like a couple miles down the road. It was great. It was great. It was just fine. So I know there are different motel options. There's one that's a little bit closer, the Cabot that people are staying at. There's Airbnbs around. There are other hotels around. So even if you don't stay on site, it's like it's really not a problem. And that's honestly the question that I've been getting most from people because I know the motel is already booked out on the campground.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I specifically stay off site when I'm not organizing it. So just because I need some downtime, I need some peace and quiet. I like sleeping and not having noise and that type of thing. I like that a lot, and I intentionally do that. I haven't been able to do it the last 3 years just because I'm organizing. But and I'm going to tell you the folks that if they're at all interested, they should buy tickets. We are already 3/4 of sold out. And just to put this in perspective, traditionally, right now is when we start selling tickets. So we are already 3/4 sold out. And a lot of this has to do with the increase in authoritarianism, but a lot also has to do with kind of the redesign of Porkfest to better match our libertarian ideals and how that impacts people. Because I think it's so consonant that people just feel so relaxed in it. The other thing is the campsites are almost all sold out. I think there's only a handful of campsites. If they are at all interested in a campsite, get your ticket and then call Rogers right away. They're open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 2 only. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 2. Call them. If you don't get an answer, if you get an answering machine, hang up and call them in the next hour. Okay, call them and secure your campsite if that's really what you want. The hotels, the immediately surrounding hotels are sold out.
Mm-hmm.
So Cabot's sold out, and a couple of other places. But yeah, if you go down, a few miles, like you said, I think Lancaster still has some rooms and that type of thing. Now, last year there were people who actually roomed 30 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large reservoir, which a 30-minute drive is not really that far for this gigantic festival.
It's
You
really
pack up
not.
your
Yeah.
car. You pack up your car. I have lists on the website of things that you should take or things you might consider taking. Usually what I do is I pack up my car with things for the morning, the day, and the night. I have supplies and all this type of stuff. And then I just live out of my car, and I'll go in and I'll change. It's in the mountains, so the days are hot. You need sunscreen, you need a hat, you need short pants, and the nights are cold. So you need
Yes.
sweaters and long pants and socks, and and it's just it really, I mean, it's the mountains. So that type of awareness is necessary. But if you have a car or you have a campsite, you have everything that you need right there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the biggest things that I brought with me last year were I had definitely layers that I brought with me. I had water, I had sunscreen, but you can also get a lot there,
Yeah.
honestly. Like you can just wander around and like if you need something, you can probably barter for it or like find someone selling something that resembles what you need. So I really didn't have any trouble like staying off site and Dennis said what Dennis says is correct for people who haven't been to New Hampshire. Like a half-hour drive for something like this in that area is like not that bad. It flies right by. You guys are gonna be fine. But I do just want to bring up the website. You can see it is in the mountains. It is in a beautiful location. The weather really worked out last year. So if you guys want to get your tickets, and again, don't complain if it sells out and you didn't get your tickets. I don't want to hear any complaining because I warned you guys like every single week. Go to porcfest.com, porcfest.com, and that's where you're going to be able to get your tickets for the event.
And do you see the menu, the drop-down menu item, come and stay? That's
Yep.
where you can get some hints as to places to go.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's where there's first-timer tips has things that you might want to take. I highly recommend that you join the Facebook Porcfest plans or the Telegram group Porcfest attendee chat. But those are also available there.
Yep.
I think those are all really important points. I will tell you guys something that nobody else knows. And I've held off
Ooh.
on this announcement
Ooh.
because you were kind enough to invite me. So your people are the first to know. We hit 3/4 sold out, so we're increasing the prices.
Okay.
The price right now, I think, is $75, and it's going to be going up to $99.99 or something ridiculous like that. So, and that happens Thursday. So your people, the ones who actually show up and come to your live stream and that type of stuff, they can get a good deal. They can get a good deal right now by going and picking up those tickets. And I'm just going to tell you, there aren't going to be tickets. Those tickets are going to be gone. If you go around February, mid-February, late February, and there aren't tickets there, don't come crying to me. I'm telling you, they're going to be gone. Now, there will be an aftermarket. It will be an active market. Last year, the price went up as high as $220 was the highest price sold. And then right before Porcfest, people, my aunt came in, or the Golden Girls TV program has a marathon, so I'm not going to go and think about liberty. I'm just going to sit and watch Golden Girls reruns. But something comes up and people get rid of their tickets at the very end. So the price went up, and it was in the high hundreds and went over 220, and then right before it crashed back down to something, and some people actually gave them away at the very end because most of the people who were going already had their tickets, we're already packed, we're already going. This is something that people really look forward to, and there's not a lot of people who go last minute that they want to go. So supply and demand curves, that type of thing. But your people know how great it is. Your people have the inside scoop on the prices, and your people can actually get a great deal that's going to go away in 2 days. So
okay. So you guys heard it here first. You got a couple days to get your Porcfest tickets at the price they are right now. I'm just scrolling through some pictures on the website from Porcfest. It is like a little village. Look, there's Tony giving a talk. People are grilling stuff. That's the pavilion right there. Like, it's just like it is a great event, guys. And so I want to encourage you, if you think you're going to go, please go get your tickets. And then if you don't go, there's yoga, not naked. Excellent. If you don't
most of the
end up
yoga
going,
is not naked. That was a very, a lot of people have remarked about that one.
yeah. Well, they did a good job of promoting that one. And then you know what I heard? What I heard is that like a whole bunch of dudes showed up like looking for naked yoga, and it was like all men. But like you guys know, like, and if you don't end up going, like, you can always sell your ticket later and make a profit. So it's like a win-win situation for you just to buy your tickets now before Dennis raises the price in 2 days. Dennis, thank you so much for coming on my channel again and talking about Porcfest. I loved this conversation. It was a great chat, and we're definitely gonna have to go ahead.
Let me say one. Let me say two more things.
Okay, go ahead. Floor is yours.
One thing is when you buy your ticket, you'll get an email. Save your email. It has the numbers that you need in order to resell them. Okay. So please don't let. So Google thinks that that libertarians in general and the Free State Project specifically all deserve to go into your spam folder, because God forbid that people should actually get free. So when you order it, if you don't see your tickets right away, look in your spam folder and rescue it and put it in a safe place. Okay. Important. The second thing is, if you decide not to go to Porcfest, despite what Karlyn and I have told you, if you decide that, we do other things around the year. And I invite you to go to Facebook, Free State Tours, and we have bus trips. The next bus trip is Friday, March 4th. We're going to be taking people out of Manchester, taking them all around the countryside, going to Liberty clubhouses. We're going to go to the State House, and you'll get a tour of that. We have guides up there who will be telling you about the history, the distant history and the recent history. And it's a great time. You'll love it. And then that leads right into Liberty Forum that weekend. So Liberty Forum starts the night of the Friday, the 4th of March. And the bus tour starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. So you take this tour of the Free State, you enjoy yourself, you meet other Liberty people, and then you can go and start Liberty Forum right away. So that's an easy way. And I can tell you, it's just a weekend, so you don't have to spend a whole week. Although you love the week, do it. But if you don't want to spend the whole week, and it's a little bit more conservative. It's a little bit more staid. So, if the idea of you going out into the woods and, being outside and, that just doesn't appeal to you, this is a great alternative. March 4th, go to Free State Tours to get information about that and other upcoming events of this type.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I appreciate it. It is always, we're going to have to schedule that talk about libertarianism and personal development, because I just think that would be a fascinating chat to have. Guys, as a reminder, this isn't even the last stream I'm going to do today on this channel. Just as a reminder, I will be joined by Joshua later. It is Joshua's birthday. He has come back. He was not well last week, but he's back. He's bounced back, and we're going to celebrate Joshua's birthday tonight. He's turning 25 again on Nothing Remotely Controversial at 9:30 tonight. And this is our regular show that Joshua and I usually do every week. Joshua is actually a psychic. And so what we do is we talk about the news, and then Joshua psychics what is going to happen to give us all a sneak peek of the insanity that we have in front of us. But even if you don't believe in psychics, it's still a really fun show, and everyone loves Joshua way more than they love me. And so we're going to be doing that at 9:30 tonight. Now, YouTube might not send you a reminder for that or a notification because I've already posted 3 videos on my channel today. So you're on your own to remember to come back at 9:30, and we're going to have nothing remotely controversial with Joshua. And of course, guys, if you appreciated this chat, please make sure you join my locals community. You can sign up for a free account at kb.locals.com. But if you want to help me out and support the work I'm doing so I can do great streams every day like this one with Dennis, make sure you become a member. You're going to get all sorts of different perks for becoming a member. You're going to be able to unlock all the features in locals. You're going to be able to come to our community Zoom that we have tomorrow at noon. You're going to be able to get all sorts of great stuff. It starts at $5 a month. $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free, or you can make a one-time gift. And of course, make sure you pre-order the book. And if you're waiting for that Kindle, if you missed it earlier, the Kindle version is coming. It's coming. It's coming in the first week in February. The publisher told me today, and I will be able to offer autographed copies as well. Though I'm working it out with the publisher. It's all going, guys. It's all going according to plan. Things are working out. Dennis, thank you again. Oh, emphasize in with the last minute super sticker. Thank you, emphasize, for that. See, this is what I get for unblocking him on Twitter, Dennis. Thank you again for coming on. Looking forward to lots more future chats. Take care, guys. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.